My name is Mark Bello.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Herstory TV and the Herstory podcast. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Wellington, New Zealand. And I am graced today with the presence of a gentleman coming to us all the way from the United States. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. As you know, the Herstory platform is open to male speakers. We believe that until we start bringing men into the rooms where we have these conversations, nothing much will change with the condition of women in the world. So my guest today is going to tell us his full name, where he's based, how old you are, and share your story with us today.
Well, hello. I'm speaking to you from West Bloomfield, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. My name is Mark Bello. I'm an attorney. I'm an author. I've written now 7 novels. Most of them, well, all of them, deal with social justice issues that are relevant today in the law, in politics, in America. I must admit I don't know New Zealand politics very well. Maybe you can enlighten me. But my first book, Betrayal of Faith, was a product of a case I handled back in the 1980s. I'm 69 years old. I've been an attorney for 45 years. And this case was the case of my life. A young woman came to me. Her 2 sons had been molested by a priest. The church was covering up the crime. They claimed they had no knowledge of the priest's propensity to abuse children. And our job was to prove that they did. Ready, or I was too busy, or what have you. And I put it back on the shelf. And when I was 65, I picked it up again and took the rather, I don't know, scattered manuscript and turned it into my first book, Betrayal of Faith. The book is about a woman, 2 kids. Her husband has been killed in a prior accident. She is seeking, for lack of a better way to say it, some kind of male role model in her life. And she turns to this priest who takes her boys on a camping trip and promptly abuses them. When they come back, they're sullen, they're angry, they're quiet, they're reserved, they lash out. Her first reaction to that is to go to the church and seek help. She's lied to by those people at the church. They do one good thing, and that's refer her to a psychologist or a psychiatrist who essentially digs up the truth. She hires the hero of all of my novels, Zachary Blake, a lawyer, and they pursue justice for the 2 boys. And that's essentially how my first book what came about. So at 65, in my senior citizen years, after I retired from practicing law, I became an author of legal thrillers.
Wow. Now that is a very, very sad, but very common story. It's interesting how this theme runs through the whole world. I've heard it repeated over and over and over again. How did you feel when you finally won that case? Because for you as a young lawyer, that must have made an impact on you and your career going forwards, correct?
Well, it was the case of my life.
Mm,
It was very satisfying, not so much to win it. Um, I'm not going to say it wasn't satisfying to win it, but to prove it. Uh,
yes.
the the behavior was deplorable, and uh, proving that the priest was not only guilty of the conduct, that was kind of the easy part. The criminal case took care of that, but
Hmm.
proving the cover up, proving that the denials of prior knowledge were untrue, um, proving that people that were held in very high esteem in the Detroit area uh, were lying to us and um, lying under oath was in one way devastating, but in another way very uplifting that we were able to blow the lid off the conspiracy. You mentioned that it's not a unique story.
Mm,
You're right. But back in 1983, 84, it was quite a unique story.
yeah.
We were one of the first lawyers to uh, bring a priest and an archdiocese to justice in these cases.
Mm,
Since that time, well over $3 billion has been paid out in verdicts or settlements to clients in the United States alone. There have been 19 orders um, who have filed for bankruptcy protection because of litigation related to the clergy abuse crisis.
mm.
Um, some terrific lawyers have emerged from the crisis. They made this their career. I did not, but some very fine lawyers in the United States have pursued justice for a lot of victims like mine and have done a terrific job. Um,
Wow.
what strikes me, um, blows my mind is this policy they have of transferring a priest from one place to another,
Yes.
not telling the new community that there's a predator in their midst, and just going on as if nothing happened, as if the idea that there's a shortage of priests somehow justifies putting a pedophile into an unsuspecting community. Um,
That is the saddest thing that you hear about.
the
Very,
best
very
part of the,
sad.
the best part of the case, though, has been the beginning of uh, blowing the cover off of the cover up. And you might have seen the movie Spotlight about the Boston, Massachusetts
Yes.
scandal.
Yes.
That was an Oscar-winning film after it was a book. That particular crisis, um, late '90s, early 2000s, people thought that was the beginning of this. This
Hmm.
goes back. This goes back way before that. And
Yeah.
my case involves 6 kids who were abused in the early '70s, um, before the 2 that I represented, and uh, the 2 boys I represented.
Wow.
These days, uh, attorneys general are now prosecuting um, priests that were involved in this behavior, including the priest that this book is based on. Um,
Wow.
so, so what you're talking about here is 50 years later. 50 years later, he's finally being held accountable. Until recently, I'll tell you a little story. The Archbishop, um, Bishop, I'm sorry, not the Archbishop, the
Hmm.
Bishop of uh, my county moved after this incident. After lying to me in a deposition, he moved to Illinois.
Right.
and became the Archbishop of Joliet, Illinois. The priest who committed the offenses ended his career in Joliet, Illinois, under this very same bishop's tutelage.
Huh.
The chickens went home to roost.
Yeah.
That's where he was served with this most recent criminal action that being pursued by the Michigan Attorney General. So that was my first book. It was based on an actual case that I handled, a scandal that we're all familiar with, unfortunately, all over the world, and one that the church is still wrestling with, and the Vatican is still wrestling with today. After that, I thought I was a one and done author. I thought, I'd fulfilled my bucket list.
Yes.
I wrote my book. This widow was a very strong character. I wasn't sure I could write a woman. I don't live life as a woman, so writing a woman was an unusual experience for me. But my principal character was Zachary Blake, and Zachary Blake, in some small way, is me.
Yes.
Has some of my characteristics, and characteristics, frankly, of many other lawyers who I have come across in my career.
Yeah.
But that book was followed by the 2016 election in America.
Right.
And I began to wonder, as the election played out, whether America would actually elect a self-professed anti-immigrant, anti-people of color bigot.
Yes.
So I wrote a book about it, and
Okay.
it was the first time I ever wrote a book. I mean, obviously, I'd only written one, but it was my first attempt to write a book that wasn't about a personal experience.
Right.
And the book is about a young Muslim woman who becomes the target of this bigoted president.
Oh, gosh.
And she's accused of a crime she didn't commit, the murder of a white supremacist. The president, the bigoted president in my book, seeks to make sure she's convicted.
Right.
Because it suits his
Agenda.
presidential agenda. And the book, Zachary Blake again appears as her lawyer, and another example of a strong young woman who defends herself very well. She makes some stupid mistakes along the way. We're not all infallible, but
Yeah.
Again, another my second book, Betrayal of Justice, is the name of that book.
Yes.
All of my books are betrayal of this or betrayal of that. But she is another strong female character.
Yeah.
My third book follows the second a bit. It does not have a female protagonist.
Okay.
That book is called Betrayal in Blue, and it's about it follows the white supremacy theme, but also deals with police protecting police and police pursuing police, and the so-called blue wall.
Right.
My fourth book is called Betrayal in Black. It is a book about a police officer shooting an innocent black man during a traffic stop. And there again, the book, the strong female character is the man's widow who hires Zachary Blake, and together they pursue justice against the offending officer and the police department and the community for their racist tendencies.
I
So
must say,
that
Mark,
gives you a flavor of what I've been doing.
I must say, the country you live in has literally given you so much fodder and content to write about at this
Um,
moment in time. The United States
fact,
is going through an interesting time at the moment.
fact is certainly more interesting than fiction right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
wouldn't
I
call it. I
really have
wouldn't
to
call it
thank you
positive.
for, say that
I
again.
wouldn't call it. I wouldn't call it a positive experience. Um, but it's certainly an interesting experience.
You know what my take is, Mark? I believe that the last president was a catalyst for good. America had a septic sore, and somewhere in the 60s with the civil rights movement, somebody slapped a band-aid over it and said everything is fine. And that wound has been festering for years. And all he did was take the band-aid off and expose what was really under the fiber of the society. And I think the healing time is now. People just need to go back into that wound, address it. You know, I lived in the US for a little while. I used to hear about the walking while Black concept. I experienced it firsthand. I lived in Pittsburgh. I lived in Albuquerque. And it sounds like fiction when you're at a distance until you get to experience it yourself, living in a country like the US. So let's hope some good is coming out of what has happened in the last 4 years. I think there is some good coming. It looks bad now, but with time, it's a time to heal.
Well, everything in time. You look at the. A lot of people have that I've interviewed with related to my books have asked me about the George Floyd and Derek Chauvin situations,
Yes.
and they talk about what a slam dunk the case was and how sure they were he was going to be convicted. And I said, "What country do you live in?" Um, and until the jury said not guilty or guilty,
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
wasn't
consider that
done.
case a slam dunk at all.
No,
And I
no.
think that I don't know. Again, I don't know much about New Zealand uh, legal system, but in our country, we have what's called um, limited immunity for police
Right.
officers, and you have to overcome the burden of. It's almost as if the cops get the benefit of the doubt
Yes.
rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
In most criminal cases, the citizen is presumed innocent until proven guilty, and the person gets the benefit of the doubt. Uh, um, Cops seem to get a much huge. That's not proper English, but a huge benefit of the doubt in performing their duties, and to some degree that's correctly so.
Yeah.
But when a video is captured that shows a crime being committed right before your
On
very eyes,
screen. Yes.
and to argue that somehow the officer's behavior is justified over a $20 counterfeit bill, I keep asking the question: when did the cop become the arrestor, the judge, the
Yes.
jury,
The jury.
and the executioner?
Yes.
He gets to
Yes.
arrest the guy. I don't deprive him of his right to arrest, even if it's a wrongful arrest. But I stop at that. You don't get to prosecute, convict, and carry out a sentence all in the same at the same time. So that case came out the right way.
Yeah.
Will it act as a springboard for other cases?
Hopefully it will.
That remains to be seen.
Yeah. Mark, I could talk to you forever. Unfortunately, our time is up. It is an absolute pleasure meeting you. Thank you for what you're doing in portraying these stories.
My pleasure.
Fiction wrapped in reality gets these stories out. It's all about the storytelling until we start writing the stories and sharing them, a lot of people's lives are not portrayed. So thank you so much for coming online and sharing with us today. I look
My
forward to
pleasure.
inviting you to join us at our next upcoming summit. I'll email you information about that.
Alrighty.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in. I told you the Herstory platform attracts some of the most amazing people, creative people. And Mark, you were really a surprise for me this morning. You have so made my day. Have a
Well,
fantastic day wherever you are.
I'm happy to have made your day.
Thank you,
May,
everybody.
may I mention one more thing?
Yes, sure.
I just released a book called Supreme Betrayal, and
Okay.
it is about sexual assault and a woman speaking truth to power. So I call your attention to that book also because I think it's a good example of the kinds of things that Herstory magazine is about. So
And all of these books are available on Amazon, Mark?
that is correct. Or at my website,
Fantastic.
which is markmbello.com.
All right. I will include your website with the magazine article we will write.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.